Hi, I'm Anthony Mangano, and today we left the borough of Brooklyn, crossed over the Brooklyn Bridge to get to Manhattan's Theater District. And that's where we are right now. It's St. Malachy's Church, the Actors Chapel. Well, here we are on 42nd Street, and this is amazing. You've got Aladdin, you've got Madame Tussauds, Ripley's Believe It or Not. New Yorkers come back bigger than ever. The stages are magnificent, the people, everything. That's why New York's the best, baby. Look at this street right along. Look, you got the Bronx Tale, which is now a Broadway show with the long hair. You got Amelie over there. This is New York. This is what it's about. This is the theater district. All these great theaters. Come on, we're gonna go check out some more stuff. This is amazing, huh? Walking down Broadway, you got Hershey's over here, M&M's over there across the street. It's like Willy Wonka land. Only on Broadway. Only on Broadway. Well, here we are at St. Malachy's Church. We're back, and as you can see, we're in New York, and well, you can hear it and see all the noise going on, but that's what makes New York so great. And speaking of great, you know, stars and stagehands, they never really get here on their own. They have help from family and friends, from mentors and teachers, and most of all, God. And when they need a place to go and give thanks, they come here to St. Malachy's Church, the Actors Chapel. And it means a lot. It's been over here for over 100 years. So why don't we go inside and check out the Theater of God, okay? Come on, this should be great. Oh, excuse me. Hey, Lou, stop. What are you doing here?
What are you doing?
I'm filming City of Churches.
Anthony!
Oh, there's the camera.
Yeah, say hi.
City of Churches.
These are my friends, Lou and Stu.
Hey.
It rhymes, look at that.
Yeah.
What did you have, an audition
We
or
had an
something?
audition down a block. I bumped into him. I wanted to go say a prayer.
You know, that's pretty cool. And here I am talking about the Actors Chapel and how actors come here to say a
You're doing a show
prayer.
about St. Malachy's. Yeah,
You know, and like it's a spiritual thing, and we all need help, and being actors is the perfect place.
I'm going to pray for the job.
Hey, you know what? Let's go in together. We'll say a prayer.
Yes.
Come on.
Yes.
City of Churches.
We're going inside. Come on.
That's fantastic.
Hi, I'm Anthony Mangano, and today we've crossed over the Brooklyn Bridge to be in Manhattan's Theater District to visit St. Malachy's Church and Father George Drance. Father, thank you so much for inviting us here.
Pleasure to meet you, and welcome to St. Malachy's.
The Actors Chapel.
The Actors Chapel, yes.
I know a lot about that, being an actor. So this is great. I want to thank you so much for inviting us here to this. It's really a beautiful church. It's not a big church, but it's beautiful.
It is very beautiful. The style is called a miniature Gothic, and the architect was Thomas J. Duff. He was a very prolific liturgical artist, but it echoes the kind of the grandiose scale of a Gothic cathedral, but in a very, very small space. So it actually makes this tiny piece of Broadway feel a lot bigger than it is.
Well, would you know when the parish was founded?
The land was bought in 1902, and they began construction somewhere between then and around 1917. They started with a structure that was outside of the parish. They had Mass there until the building was completed. They also had a chapel in the lower church, and that was called the Actors Chapel. There was an altar to St. Genesius, who's the patron saint of actors.
I have the medal on under my shirt.
Do you really?
Yes, a friend of mine, an actor friend of mine, gave it to me. I wear it now.
Oh, that's great. Well, in the 20s, Monsignor Edward Leonard was really instrumental in welcoming the theater community. The theater district wasn't here when the church was built originally.
I guess it was vaudeville or something, but eventually came.
Well, interestingly enough, Oscar Hammerstein, I think it was the father of the composer, was an architect, and he built the Olympia Theater, which didn't last very long, but it started to draw other theaters to this place. And as the neighborhood became more and more the theater district, St. Malachy's started to serve the community that grew around it.
Well, now, I know we call it the Actors Chapel. I'm sure it didn't have that name from the beginning. Do you know how that came about?
Well, it was Monsignor Edward Leonard who really saw what was happening, and the church has been blessed to have pastors that really could see the signs of the times. What we try to do is we try and create a sanctuary, a place where people can come and pray. Antonio Banderas used to light a candle here every night before he would perform in 9. We have actors who are on Broadway currently. We have actors in the off-Broadway community, the off-Broadway community, downtown theater, where most of the work of my company, the Magis Theater Company, happens. So it's a very involved group, union actors in all of the unions. Some people have their own companies, smaller companies, a very dynamic parish. We also have outreach to actors. The St. Genesius Society works to really help actors with their spiritual life. We have retreats for them where they look at the combination between their artistic craft and their prayer life. We do things for them in developing new scripts, trying out new things.
That's really nice being an actor myself, knowing about this. I know I have a friend of mine who you know that I guess he comes here now, but he used to come here, and he's a pretty big actor, Mickey Rourke.
Yes.
And I know that you guys helped him because he was very down at one point, and he became very spiritual and religious. I mean, we talk all the time. So he'll send me text messages, love you, brother, God bless, and same here, you know, happy Easter. They're short, but they're enough. And then when I see him, he's always been a good guy. And I know that, like you said, a lot of actors, now judging the times that the shows go on, I know there's a matinee certain days. It used to be an 8 o'clock call time. Now some of them are pushed to 7 because some shows are geared for family and they have children they come. You can't really be going at 8, 9 o'clock. Kids are good ornery. So what time do you do masses here?
We have the regular Sunday schedule, which is a 5 o'clock Mass on Saturdays in anticipation. Then on Sunday mornings, we have the 9 o'clock Mass. We have the 11 High Mass, which is with the choir. And then we have a 6 o'clock Mass. But what's unique about this parish is we also have a post-Broadway Mass on Saturday night at 11 o'clock. What's good about that is most of the shows finish around 10:30. The actors can come here for Mass at 11. That way they get that rare commodity that actors don't get a whole lot of, sleep. They can sleep in Sunday morning, spend time with their family, and then go to their matinees on Sunday.
I find that really amazing because I did an off-Broadway show for like 6 months, many years ago. I was physically exhausted.
Absolutely.
Because it takes a lot out of you. People don't realize how much it is to really dwell into this and stay in character. A lot of people will go out. I would want to go home and go to sleep. See, I didn't realize it, but I was downtown. See, that's something nice, that they can come here and pray and have a Mass, and then they can go home and go to sleep peacefully and not worry about not making Mass the next day.
That's right. It's a tradition that started very, very long ago. They made a special exception to have a 4 a.m. Mass at one point. That became a little bit unmanageable, so what they wanted to do is they wanted to honor the 12 o'clock fast, so they would have a 12:10 Mass. And that became, after Vatican II, when the Masses of Anticipation were allowed, that became the 11 o'clock Mass that we have on Saturday nights now. So it's something that they were always concerned of from the very, very early days of this serving the acting community, and now it continues as the 11 o'clock Mass on Saturdays.
Well, I understand that you ring the bells before showtime, and it's not like a normal church bell. What does it play?
It plays There's No Business Like Show Business.
See, that's great. I've never heard that. One night I'm going to come in this area just to hear that.
What's beautiful about it is it's a tradition that Father George Moore started. The bells stopped shortly after his death. And then Father Richard Baker, who was the pastor just before the current pastor, Father Peter Colapietro, Father Baker brought back that tradition. And he really began a resurgence of allowing this to be a place that was really at the service of actors. Father Pete, good friend of Mickey as well, and I think it was Father Pete who really brought Mickey here to begin with, you know, has been a real force in welcoming people and making this a haven for actors.
Well, I know a lot of my actor friends do stop in here. Some of my Jewish actor friends stop in here.
Yes.
You know, they want to pray before they go on to perform. You know, I've stopped in here. Well, sometimes I've had an appointment and I come in, you know, you need a little spiritual help. I always say, it's not my way, but your way. So if it's meant to be, just make me the best I can be when I walk in the door. Because there's a lot of things that go on that people don't realize. You know, these actors, they go in and bells start ringing, phones are ringing, people are interrupting you, and they have to stay in character. So I guess coming in here gives them that, and I've come in here afterwards too. You know, I've done that too on many appointments. I would come in, pray before and pray after, say thank you for giving me the strength to pull that through, which I think is really a great thing for people in general, but also for actors. Father, we were discussing about how it's the Actors Chapel, and I know we're in the middle of Broadway. There had to be a lot of famous people over the years, in the 1920s, that have come through this door.
Since its very beginning, George M. Cohen was such a fan of, such a fan of St.
James
Malachy's.
Cagney in that movie.
Absolutely,
Phenomenal.
He donated the altar rail that was in the original Actors Chapel in the lower church.
Oh.
So Rudolph Valentino's funeral was here. People crammed 49th Street for that.
Today, nobody would know who Rudolph Valentino. It's only guys that are our age. He'd be bigger than a lot of other stars.
Absolutely. Douglas Fairbanks married Joan Crawford here. Tennessee Williams' funeral was here as well.
There you go. I mean, the playwright Tennessee Williams, right in the heart of Broadway.
And so many other people, Cheetah Rivera, Gregory Peck, Frank Sinatra, Florence Henderson. As I mentioned earlier, Antonio Banderas would come in here. Liam Neeson, when he first came over from Ireland, before he went to LA, stopped at St. Malachy's.
You know, you like to hear that because, you know, show business can get a little leery in stardom and stuff. I like to hear that they don't think it's all them, so to say, because that's when your ego gets in, when you go, and then God goes, really? It goes, I'm not going to take it back a little bit. So you want to give praise to who helped you get there. Well, when we come back, we're going to talk about all the beautiful artwork, design, sculptures, everything in this church. So we'll be right back. Well, we're back at St. Malachy's Church and Father George Drance. Father, we're going to pick it up now about how great this church is. Now, I have a few questions for you, and I know you're doing great, so you can answer this. That's a beautiful altar. Is that the original?
It really is, yes. It was constructed when, before Vatican II, the priest used to say the Mass with his back to the congregation. We brought the altar forward and changed the configuration of the pews to make people more attentive to what's happening in the liturgy.
I came in, I noticed that it's some are facing this way, some are sideways, but they're all facing the altar.
That's right.
So everybody can see.
It's such an intimate space that people really feel connected to the Eucharist. The mural over the altar is the Eucharist. We have a holy hour here once a week. Dennis Higgins presides over that very often. Some of the priests here also preside over that. So the Eucharist is always central at what happens here at St. Malachy's.
Well, I noticed these Stations of the Cross. I don't know, it looks like bronze.
This is really due to the work of Chris Allis, the artist who restored these when Father Baker was pastor. Prior to that, they're done in plaster actually, and they were painted beige like the rest of the walls behind. But there were pictures in the earlier church where it was more detailed and where you could really see the details of the sculptures. So I think it's to the artist's credit that he was able to work with the lights and shadows to bring the events of Christ's passion, death, and resurrection closer to us.
These artists are so talented to take something and then redo it. It looks as if it was the original.
Another funny story about that is you see the pillars here is a kind of a stonework that is not really marble but looks like marble. It's poured in a beautiful way, in a lot of ways the way Lincoln Center's, the stonework was there. We noticed that underneath the murals in the front of the church, recessed behind some walls that were built later, was also marble. So to restore that, Ken Wu, another liturgical artist, did a marbleizing of the entire front of that. Even though it's not marble, it looks like it is, and it matches the pillar.
It's almost like St. Joseph's Co-Cathedral in Brooklyn. We noticed they explained that to me in the same way. It's a certain way of doing it. I would not have known it wasn't marble, so you told me that. They do a great job.
Yeah, it's really tremendous the work that everyone over the years that has been involved in making this a beautiful, welcoming place for people to come and be inspired.
Well, all my viewers know I'm a stained glass kind of guy. I love stained glass. You've got some beautiful stained glass in here.
You do.
I always say it every time because it kind of tells the story in the Bible, that it comes to life. And they're really, really nice. I mean, especially the ones above the altar and on the sides. And I understand that you have a stained glass window of St. Genesius, which is that it right there?
That's it, yes. St. Genesius was the patron saint of actors, and he was the first stand-up comic to be killed for his art.
Oh, poor guy. Talk about a rough crowd.
It really was a rough crowd. We're talking ancient Rome, we're talking the arena where the gladiatorial fights were happening. St. Genesius was a comic actor, and he was doing, at the time when Christianity was new, Christians were ridiculed and persecuted. He was doing a comedy that was based on Christianity. And in the course of it, they actually made the mistake of using the actual baptismal formula. Now, St. Genesius experienced an actual baptism. from just the words, just the action being performed. He felt it in his heart so much that at that moment he went to the emperor and he said, "You have to stop doing this to these people. This is something true." And he started explaining his own experience. Well, of course, the crowd couldn't take that. The emperor couldn't take that. And he was martyred for his faith. And even though he was only a Christian for a few moments, his witness was that eloquent.
That's a great story. No wonder why he was the saint of actors. I mean, what a way, I guess, an epiphany in the middle of performing this thing that he was ridiculing it, that he had a spiritual awakening like that and then became saint of actors.
I think actors are always trying to do what's real, always trying to stay in the moment, and for him to experience that as real and not to own it.
I've watched actors and as myself perform, and it takes a lot, singing, acting, but to do comedy, oh, that's hard. That's really hard, especially if you have a rough crowd. Well, like I said before, it was a rough crowd.
In the Artist Shrine, there's an icon of St. Genesius that shows him with the drama and the comedy masks. So what you're saying about comedians, that's certainly true. And the original logo of the parish was the cross with the two masks at the cross and the four evangelists around the cross. So
that was the original.
That was the original logo for the church. What they did is they took the shape of it and they streamlined it a little bit so that it would work better for a contemporary audience.
I like that. Being an actor, that's really nice. We're talking about this stained glass window. It's the 7 sacraments?
Yes. The stained glass windows in the main part of the church echo the 7 sacraments, and the angels that are on the side in the murals. One of our parishioners told me an interesting story about that. The church has gone through several renovations, and there was a lot more gilding on these angels, but when they restored them, they tried to make the faces of the angels really mirror the diversity of the community that we have here now. In the beginning, it was mostly an Irish community, but now you'll see in the way that the painting has been restored, it reflects more of a New York feel.
And what I notice is that since we do a lot of these churches, the acoustics are amazing because you could hear, there's no one, just us talking, you could hear it all the way in the back. Which is nice because I guess when they designed it, there were not microphones back then, so the voice had to amplify all the way to the back.
That's right. This is a great space for preaching. We have 2 spaces, the space of the main church and then the West Chapel, which was added on later on. But yes, acoustics are really great in this church. We have a sound system, but sometimes it fails, and that's when you're really glad for your actor training.
That's true, to project. And speaking of sound, is that the original organ?
These pipes are part of the original construction of the organ. It was assembled by Paul Creston, who was an American composer in residence here at St. Malachy's. It was fully restored, and we may have someone tell you a little bit more about that later.
Father, that's a beautiful altar.
This was in the original church when it was built in the 20s. The reredos was constructed for the style that the Mass was before Vatican II, where the priest would have his back to the congregation.
Back to the congregation? I forgot about that. So now they turn around, they're facing...
Yes, so bringing the altar forward here and allowing the pews to surround the altar brings people much closer to the Eucharist.
Now, I understand, you say that there's the Actors' Chapel. Now, that was downstairs originally?
Yes.
And what's down there now?
Now it's the Encore Community Services. It's a tremendous outreach to not only the theater community, but to the community in our neighborhood as well. It serves meals to the elderly, it provides programming, it has classes, activities, all kinds of outreach for the elderly and especially to actors who have lived in this neighborhood and continue to be part of this neighborhood. It's a great place for them to come back to and to get support, companionship.
Well, thank you for that. So when we come back, we're going to look at the Artist Shrine right here at St. Malachy's. So we'll be right back.
This is St. Malachy's Rectory, and this picture is of Father George Moore, who was the pastor here for many, many years. I've been here for 43 years, and when he came in, Cardinal Cook asked that he'd come in because St. Malachy's is deteriorating, and let's see what he can do to bring this place back up. And he had put a lot of work in there. He got the people in the theater district to help, and also to walk around and to see what it was like in the neighborhood, and started. With that, I've been here since that time, and I used to be a parish manager at one time for Father George. Then he started downstairs an encore. He said he's putting this to the people in the community, they belong here, and this is when it started.
Well, Father Drance had said that he had someone very special that was going to explain to us about this beautiful pipe organ. And he's right here, Mr. Dennis Higgins.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, Dennis. I understand you know a lot about that beautiful organ up there. Can you tell our viewers?
It's a 1935 Ariel Skinner organ. It is said to be better than the organ at Radio City. We have over 2,900 pipes. The center pipe, was a rendition, but the center pipe actually reaches to 1 foot of the top of the arch in the choir loft.
I just saw that before, yeah.
We have many organ concerts here. The console, we have one down here and one up there. They can be both played simultaneously. The one down here can be moved to the center aisle, and we have organ concerts. We even have someone who comes in and plays the organ to silent movies.
You mean like Charlie Chaplin and Buster
The first
Keaton and
courtesy he
those guys?
did was Charlie Chaplin, Buster Keaton, and Harold Lloyd. Then the last 2 Easters, we did King of Kings and the 10 Commandments. And he accompanied the silent movie. We have a 7x10 screen that we put up and show the silent film, and he accompanies it on the organ.
This is truly the Actors Church.
Yes.
To do something like that. That's really nice.
Also, we've had many assistants who are from Juilliard, and they quite often do their graduation concert here on the organ. We get a lot of use out of the organ here.
This has been refurbished, right?
Yes. The original organ that was in the church was of no condition to be, and was cost too much, and so they got rid of it. We had an electronic organ for many years. And then this organ was in a church in New Jersey. They sold the building. They went to Paragallis, who was the organ company, and they said, throw it away. And he said, you can't do that. This is an above average organ. It can't be destroyed. So they took it apart, they refurbished it, they brought it here and put it in.
Now, I understand this is
This is the West Chapel.
the West Chapel?
Originally, the chapel stopped at the icons, the Stations of the Cross. But this now is the Sacred Heart altar. This is the West Chapel, was added on, and we have many functions in here. Orchestras have rehearsed in here. Choirs have rehearsed in here. We have gatherings in here. At one time, we were producing readings in here, plays, which those are done now downstairs in the
community center?
In the community center.
Dennis, I want to thank you so much for educating me as well as our audience here on this beautiful pipe organ. Now I'm going to go meet Father over there by the Artist Shrine. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Well, we're back at St. Malachy's Church, and we're here at the...
Artist Shrine.
I'll let you say it. This is Saint...
This is the icon of St. Genesius, and as we were saying before, he's holding the masks of comedy and tragedy. He's also holding the martyr's palm in his hand. His other hand shows a finger pointing to heaven, pointing to, actually, you'll see in the icon, the Spirit descending upon him. One of the unique...
Yes, I see that.
Yeah, and below, the unique feature of this is the name of all the theaters in the theater district. So it brings the...
I see that. The Majestic,
The Royale.
the Royale,
Yes.
St. James.
Yep.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
This is really nice.
This would be the image that many of the great actors who would come here before auditions or come here before a show, they would light a candle and say a prayer in veneration, asking for his intercession. We as Catholics, we like things that we can see, we like things that we can touch, we like things that really bring us connected to our history. So to be connected to the life of St. Genesius and to the life of all of these actors who have gone before us and prayed here, it's a great place for actors to continue to come and feel that connection, feel that community.
I'm gonna have to stop in here more often. I have to light a candle more often. I need a little extra help. Now, I understand there's a website for St. Malachy's?
Yes, it can give you actually the weekly bulletin, some history, and things that are going on in
Well,
the
we're going to put that up on our website. Well, that's it for this week's episode. And I want to thank you so much, Father, for inviting us to the Actors Church. And if you have any questions about this episode, we're going to put up the website for St. Malachy's Church on the screen so you'll see it. Or we'll have our own website at netnewyork.tv. Or you can follow us on Facebook or Twitter, or write into us at City of Churches, 1712 10th Avenue, Brooklyn, New York, 11215. Until next time, I'm Anthony Mangano in the Actors Church with Father George Drance. Thank you so much for watching. God bless you.